What's great for your listeners is that if you've put that piece of content out on social media, let's say, and someone's read it or read the last 10, by the time they pick up the phone to you, they've built a little bit of a rapport with you because they know your tone of voice and they know you, and something's made them say, I want you over those 200 other people that are in that counselling directory. And I think that's why it's important, because actually it's the drip feed that, just taking one piece of the jigsaw one day at a time.
Welcome to Good Enough Counsellors, the podcast for growing a private practice without the pressure to be perfect. I'm Josephine Hughes, counsellor and creator of Therapy Growth Group, helping you get the clients you want and create the practice of your dreams. So today's guest is someone I met in a slightly unexpected place, which was at our mutual friend's party, where we got chatting and quickly realised we had a lot in common. So I'm really pleased to welcome Vicky Jackson, who runs Tuk Tuk Creative. Vicky is a website designer and creative marketer, but what really stood out to me when we spoke is that she doesn't take the usual approach. In fact, one of her core messages is that you don't necessarily need a website straight away, which I know would be quite a relief for a lot of therapists listening. She also supports people with ADHD to create websites in a way that actually works for their brain, and she brings her own perspective as someone who has searched for a therapist herself. So today we're going to talk about when you do and don't need a website, how to make the process feel more manageable, and what really matters when potential clients are trying to find you. So welcome, Vicky. It's really nice to see you again.
Thank you. Lovely introduction. And
Thank you.
Definitely an interesting place to meet each other, wasn't it? Unexpected, I think.
Yeah. So whereabouts are you based? Because you've got a little bit of a northern accent, haven't you?
I have. So I am up in sunny Stoke. And normally I would say sunny Stoke and it's not sunny, but today it is actually sunny. So yeah, Stoke-on-Trent. So north of Birmingham, south of Manchester.
Brilliant, thank you. For someone from Essex, I actually need to know that exactly. Where
That's
it's
exactly right. Yeah, because I would have no idea unless you named if you just named part of your county, I would be like, no, none the wiser.
Yeah. So I wondered if we could start with something that is really interesting. Is why do you call yourself Tuk Tuk Creative?
So this dates right back. So when I formed the business, there'd been a few other businesses locally, creative businesses, who'd been set up for a few years and then had to change their name because they didn't do enough research and other people claimed stake to their name. Mm-hmm. So I was very, very mindful of wanting a unique name, one that hasn't been around. And when you are a designer, the usual has already been taken. And I also really, really, really did not want to be Vicky Jackson Creative because it did not seem very creative at all. So I needed to practice what I preach. So I worked really hard on trying to figure out what it was that I was going to offer. And I actually came up with a strapline first, which was taking brands on an inspiring journey. I'd been working at a marketing agency and hadn't really felt that the people that we were working with were part of the journey, and I love travel, especially Asia. So I was like, right, it needs to be this journey element, and that's what I really want to do. I want to sit side by side the clients. So then I came up with that and then looked at chauffeur creative, taxi creative, all of these different travel metaphors, and most of them had already been taken, and then they just didn't really align. And then I thought, right, what's the best form of vehicle, the transport? And it was Tuk Tuk. I love Asia. So it's right, Tuk Tuk Creative Marketing. And so I was like, yeah, got it. Absolutely. It's a really big thing coming up with your own name. I told one of my best friends, she said, you can't call it that. I almost died in a Tuk Tuk. So I went back to the drawing board for about a week or 2 weeks. And I was like, no, there's just nothing else. There's nothing else that sits or aligns. And that's where Tuk Tuk Creative Marketing came from. And I truly believe it's like one of the best things I've ever chosen in my life almost. It just aligns.
Yeah. And I mean, the idea of chauffeur creative, I mean, that just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? I mean, Tuk Tuk Creative, it's something very so quirky about it really, isn't there? They're so individual, those little vehicles, aren't they? Yeah.
And that's it. A tuk-tuk, you are never going to experience something ever the same again as you will in a tuk-tuk. And driving around the streets of Bangkok, or in a rickshaw, or whatever vehicle version of it might be, you won't experience anything the same. They're fast, they're furious, they're dipping through the traffic, but they're also affordable and they're fun, and they are. You're on that tuk-tuk. You're experiencing Bangkok. There's no windows. There's no doors. You are
Yeah.
experiencing it, and it just fits. So
It's
yeah,
fantastic.
and I get to
And
buy little tuk-tuks along the way.
yeah. You have little tuk-tuks on your desk or something. Yeah.
I have. Look at me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Got some right behind me.
Yeah, brilliant. And there was something else that you said there, which I thought was really interesting, because you use that word journey. And that is a word that we therapists use an awful lot as well, because we talk about taking our clients on a journey. So it's really interesting to hear you say you take them on a creative journey. I think that's a really interesting similarity between what we do.
It's a really important part of what I do. I think we take for granted what we all do as our specialism and think, well, anyone could do it. It's easy, especially if self-worth is low or we're just not feeling right. And theoretically, anyone can do anything that they wanted to, especially in the world of AI. But I think to be able to go on that piece from start to finish, you kind of maybe know where you're trying to get. But actually, it's that guide and going on that journey together that means that you're not just paying a bill and it being done at the end. You're not dictating to, and this is what you're going to do, and then, effectively I'm in the driving seat and I'm just going to do exactly what you say. It's that collaboration, and it is that going through it together, because you know your business better. There's no point me making assumptions, and I know websites better. So coming together and really figuring out what that journey looks like and where you're going to get to is absolutely key, especially if I want to have fun creating it, because all the other versions are really boring, because you're just ticking a box. You're just getting to the end, and that's not the best bit.
Yeah. So do you sort of have favourite types of work that you like doing then? Is that sort of part of, do you get to choose? Like we sort of, there's sort of work that we excel at, I think, as therapists. We can work with particular types of clients and we work really well with them. And then there can be other clients where you just think, oh dear, this isn't really me.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that means we work really well together. So it's not necessarily the product or the service that person is producing or they're selling. It's about that relationship and that almost banter and that trust that we build in each other. So people who are a little bit braver or ready to be brave, so they know they're not a square peg in a square hole kind of thing. They're looking to just do that little bit of difference, or just be themselves, or they're selling themselves. That's where I think I really come through, because all of my years of learning how to do empowerment coaching alongside all the business coaching I've done means that I'm able to speak with business owners and give them the confidence to be that 10% braver, to niche down, or to really excel and be themselves. And I think that really came to light the other month. I did a website for a bridal hair expert. And I'm not a big fan of weddings. I'm not a big fan of bridal dresses, and I'm not a big fan of haircuts. So if you look at that on paper, it was never going to work. It just wasn't. And pretty and beautiful is not necessarily my niche. However, I work in a certain way that means we do a website in a week. So the client came down, we'd had one conversation. She came down to the office and we sat for 3 days creating this website. And we had a ball. It was, we laughed, we joked. I told her that I didn't know a wavy curl or the Hollywood curls from the next kind of thing. I got confused about which bride was which bride. I couldn't tell the difference by the end of the week in anything. But the website is stunning, and I can still pick the phone up to her now or send her a voice note, and we will be in stitches because we went on that journey together. And I absolutely would not excel in bridal hair or wedding dresses, but that's where she does. And I get to bring it to life. I get to show people exactly what she does and how she does it. And I get to translate that into the end client and ensuring that the end client knows this is the bridal hairstylist for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting because what I got a sense of then is that sense of empowering. That I suppose it's sort of like you're helping the person, the business owner, make the most of what they're offering. Really, you're really sort of almost expanding it. I can't quite think of the right word, but elevating, I suppose, maybe of their sort of brand through what you do.
It is, and I love the conversation. So Cleo, the bridal hairdresser, came in and she had her packages sorted out, her pricing. I'm like, come on, that's not expensive enough. So by the end of it, she'd put her prices up by 20%. She'd niched down into who she actually wanted. She'd simplified her pricing. Now that's not the job of a web designer.
Yeah.
But it is the job of going, well, how do you make this more efficient? How do you quote more? How do you reduce the to and fro in? How do you do this? How do you do this? And it's that kind of thing. And speaking to Cleo, she thought she knew where she wanted to be, but by really getting her to be brave in the content that we produce and the headlines that we write and the way that we word things, we're able to really niche down and say, go on, be brave. There's still going to be people who might want, a difference to that, and they might still inquire if they really want you, but actually let's self-select in and get loads of people to self-select out, because actually getting 20 quotes a month off people that aren't your target is just wasting your own time. And it makes you feel like if you get 20 quotes of work that just isn't right work for you, you feel like, oh, you're doing a bad job, but actually it's never going to be the right fit. So getting people to self-select out on the website is just as important as getting people to self-select in, because then you're more efficient on every inquiry that comes in.
Yeah, I imagine this is probably the same for a lot of business owners. There can be real fear around that, can't there? Sort of like, oh, if I don't attract everybody, then I'm not going to get anybody. And I think that's a real fear amongst many of us in the therapy world. You think, oh, there's not enough clients, I've got to take everybody who comes. And it's very difficult for us to think about sort of like allowing people to select out. It's a big cause of fear, I think.
And it is, because certainly when I think business, it's almost like this unwritten rule, or it needs to be tough and you need to be working hard. You need to be working X amount of hours a week to make it. You really need to criticize the week. At the end of the week, if you haven't criticized, if you can't criticize the week, it's almost like you're failing at business because it's a bit too easy.
Yeah.
And I try and say to people, no, let's make it more simple. Like, we all know, we've all had bad clients. We've all had clients that we haven't gelled with. And that one person can have such an impact on your downtime when you go home. They can have an impact on when you pick up the phone. And if you see that person ringing, you guys are sat opposite them. So that energy that you're then left with, actually, I'm sure there's some clients where you just feel really empowered because you're making such a difference. And I think the more we do that, whatever the end result in, whether it's counselling, therapy, or whether it's web design, the bigger the difference I can make in that person's life, in that person's business, the better it is for everyone. And I think when you talk through that and about being brave and about watching people's faces light up when they talk about that target client, or tell me about the perfect client, tell me about the ones that you've really made a difference, tell me about the people who didn't. You watch the faces change, you watch the energy. So why would you want to deal with that person who's just made you withdraw into your body?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I mentioned in the intro was about when is a good time to have a website, because it's sort of almost counterintuitive that I was talking to you as a website designer and you said, I tell people, no, it's not the time to have a website. So tell us some more about that.
I've told so many people that, don't have a website. Don't have a website.
Yeah.
I think having a website is a massive investment, especially if you're going to do it kind of not entry level. So we're not talking, created in India, or we're not talking made by a friend or family kind of thing. If you're going to pay for someone's services, having a website is something that you're going to invest in. So let's say a base website costs £2,500. I think businesses have got to be at a stage for me to be able to warrant taking that money off them, and me not being able to justify them spending that money elsewhere, or being able to do things elsewhere in their business that would give them a gain that is similar.
Yeah.
So I will always look at what people have already got. And it almost comes down to 9 times out of 10, if that person is having a website because they need more leads and they need more inquiries and the business is shot, I will say it's not the right time. Because actually you're hoping that a website is going to fix that. And actually having a website, you've then got to do some stuff in Google to get to the top. You've then got to do blogs and you've then got to get it to the top, and you've got to, and it's stress. And if that is trying to solve the problem of getting more clients, I'm not always convinced it's the right move. So I think lay the foundations, and actually it's a stepping stone to getting to that point of having the website. If you haven't got a Google business page, then I suggest that. If you haven't got the social media and you're posting on social media, go and do that. If you haven't got brand photography, then I think certainly in the counselling world, don't bother, because you're going to be putting stock images on there and it's not going to showcase who you are and what you do. So I think there's certainly in the counselling world, I think there's steps to lay the foundations, and if money's tight and things like that, there's ways you can do it, especially with these online booking platforms and things like that. For me, it's got to be if I was in your situation, I'd be spending this money. And unless I can say that to someone, if they got a load of money and they're, and they've just been made redundant or something, that's a different kettle of fish. But if they are coming at this and need to really focus down on when they spend the money, I think it's about laying the foundations first and doing every single thing you can possible that drives that reputation and makes sure the website, when it does go live, is actually found.
Yeah, because I think that's a problem that a lot of therapists have, in that they spend, I mean, to be honest, usually people will build their own on something like Wix.
Yeah.
But then it never gets found. And a lot of what I get sort of like coming up in my Facebook group is, well, how do I improve the SEO on it to help it get found? I don't know how much that works. I don't know. But, I think it's just really interesting to hear you say, is it almost sort of like you have to have an idea of who your clients are before you build the website?
I think it massively helps. I think this is where we can go down all the algorithms and stuff, but for me, it's about human beings first. So if you're just trying to go, I'm going to stick to Stoke-on-Trent, but if you're trying to do counsel of Stoke-on-Trent, I don't know, there's probably a few hundred, or certainly if you think about easily in the counselling directories and things like that, well, great. That's a term that you're just not going to rank. With a brand new website, you're just not going to be seen. So if you want to then be like, if you want to be seen on Google, well, what's your niche then? So they call them long tail keywords. So for example, if you're talking about sexual abuse counsellor, then that's got a longer tail keyword. And the more you write about sexual abuse on your website, the more chance you've got. Or a neurodiverse counsellor, or the problem and the target that person's facing. If you can then do that, you're then going to serve against, let's say you've then reduced the population of those websites to, even if you halve it, because not everyone's going after that traffic, or there's going to be a significant amount of websites that aren't targeting anything. They're just targeting counselling, Stoke-on-Trent, and they're saying nothing. Yeah. So it's about reducing that pot that you're competing against almost. Yeah. And by knowing where you serve and where you serve right, that's where the sweet spot is. So if you're a neurodiverse counsellor or a counsellor for people with ADHD, you can talk about ADHD, you can talk about the pros of ADHD, you can talk about the challenges of having ADHD, you can talk about how hard it is to even book your appointment with ADHD. You can really focus on ADHD. And if your then website, which has 10,000 words on, mentions ADHD and counselling 10, 15, 20, 30% of the time, Google then knows, right, this is a counsellor for people with ADHD. You've then got a little bit more of a chance. And unless you know what you do and who you do it for, your website is just going to be generic, and it's just going to get lost, and you are a needle in a haystack. And that for me feels really like a missell for someone. I can create you a needle in a haystack. That doesn't feel genuine, and it doesn't feel right to me. So I will often send people away with a to-do list to really think about, because people will take your money. They just will. And actually, I'd prefer to say, go away and do this. Even if they go elsewhere and buy a website, I will always try and offer the advice to give them something to think about, so that when they do invest, when they do spend the money, it can make a difference.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So for the sort of person who's just starting out then, because I think this often comes up, they have a little list of all the things they've got to do, and creating a website would be on it. But you would say, wait, don't do it yet.
Wait.
Yeah.
Don't do it yet. If you've got some amazing skills, you can create a website by yourself in Wix or Squarespace. But I have also seen people try and create their website and they take a nice template and they manage to mess it up. It's almost like they've just got a 5-year-old to do it. And actually, no website is better than a bad website. Because if it's a bad website and it doesn't represent your brand or you, then actually you're doing more damage. So if you've got Facebook or Instagram and you can do that, which is free, you can then lay some foundations and you can really start to hone your message. So you can lay that down. There's very few times that I would say, right, the first thing you do is create a website, because there's so many ways. You can even have on your Google Business, you can have your Book Now link go into a online calendar booking system or to your Facebook page. There's ways of making it feel like you've got more of a digital space than you have.
Yeah, that's just really helpful, actually, because I think it's such a burden for people when they're starting out. They think they have to tick all those boxes, and there's so much more that people can do. And actually, one of the things that I was sort of thinking about was how when we met, we connected on LinkedIn. I don't know if you remember this. And then you got in touch with me about a month later and you said, I've scrolled through all my LinkedIn. Yes. Do you remember this? You said,
I couldn't remember your name. So I was like, God, I have to go through all the connections of like, who is this person that I've met?
And I was exactly the same, because I'm hopeless with names too. So, it was really nice when you got in touch. So, and then we talked about it and you said that networking is actually something that's really important to you, isn't it? Is this how you get a lot of your...
Networking is massive.
Yeah.
Networking is massive for me. I think I'm a kind of... I think the way I work is you either love it or you hate it. I'm dry, I'm sarcastic, I'm direct, I'm going to give you my opinion. And that isn't where everyone sits or where everyone is ready for. And I think by being in a room with people and really speaking to people, I get referrals. The way networking works, for any of your audience who don't do it, is I go to a networking event that happens every other week. So every other week I'm there at 6:45 a.m. and surrounded by the same people. I've been networking for about 13 years now. And those people in that room get to know me, get to know exactly who I am, get to know the types of people that I work with and the types of businesses that I work with, and then they go on to do my advertising effectively. So when those businesses meet businesses who need websites, they recommend me, which means that when they're recommending me, it's like, right, here's Vicky. She's funny. She's this. She'll talk to you. She'll give you the honest advice, blah, 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 blah. But they also know when not to give my information over. So if someone needs a £10 website, then they're not going to recommend me. Or if someone just needs... I don't know, this person doesn't want any interaction with you at all, Vicky. They don't want any advice. They don't want any of that. Then they know. So it's a really interesting way. And actually, I've been in business for 10 years. I would say for the first 9, I absolutely did not want a single thing coming through my website, because they don't know me. They've not met me. And it feels so much harder than actually being in a room with someone and building a relationship with someone and really getting to know them and then going, I can absolutely do you a website. Or, and I would say 90% of my work has come through networking.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you've got someone who's been recommended to you, that is different from someone just coming through your website, isn't it? I'm just going to pause there for a moment, because what Vicky's saying about networking and referrals is so relevant to therapists too. Listening to Vicky talk about the power of networking is such a good reminder that getting clients isn't always about doing the biggest or most complicated thing first. It often starts with simple foundations, like making it easier for people to recommend you and talk about what you do. And that's one of the things that we focus on inside Therapy Growth Group. And I'm shortly going to be starting the action steps again. And the first steps are all about getting those word of mouth referrals. It may be that the idea of networking sounds really scary, but I've got ways that you can do it that helps you to get into it in a gentle way rather than the thought of turning up at a business breakfast like Vicky's done for the past few years. But there's other ways that you can network, and we talk all about it in Therapy Growth Group. So if you'd like some gentle, practical support with growing your private practice, and that can include referrals, writing your profiles, social media, or any other sorts of steps that you want to take to market your practice, you're very welcome, and I'll put the details in the show notes.
It's massive, because if you almost start out, when you're Googling, you start out on a few different perspectives. I think for me, websites are different. Websites can be often around price. I don't want to get bought on price. I don't want to be the cheapest. I don't want to be the most expensive. I want to be the person that it doesn't matter what the price is against all the others. I feel Vicky's going to understand me. I think she's going to produce the website I need. And I trust Vicky, and she's going to give me the information. I don't want someone to give feedback. I chose you because you were the cheapest. Great. Like, no. I want that person to really want to work with me, because then you get the right result, and you're more likely to end up with a long-lasting relationship that you can then keep on going back for advice and things like that. So
you're building up, because it when you've got a website, it is something that needs to be looked after, doesn't it, and maintained. And
there's a great blog post on my website that I wrote for Valentine's Day the other year, about how your website is like a dating profile. And it just reminds me of that. You've really got to sell yourself on there and represent who you are. Otherwise, people are just going to swipe the wrong way.
I think, again, coming back to therapists, I think this is something that we find really difficult to do, because we aren't, we're not natural. None of us are trained. Well, there's a few people who are marketers before they become therapists, but the rest of us got no idea. And it's really daunting, this whole thing about selling ourselves and making the most of ourselves. And someone said the other day, I was reading in my group, and they said, the best therapists are the ones that are quite self-doubting, because it keeps them sort of, questioning themselves and reflecting on what they're working with their clients. But I don't think that makes you a very good marketer if you're sort of a self-doubting therapist. I mean, this is the problem, I think. We find it so difficult to sell ourselves.
I think anyone who is selling themselves as a business, I'm a limited company, but effectively it's me, so I'm still selling myself. And I've been in business for 10 years, and still I'm like, can I design websites? Am I really a great website designer? And then I'm far better than I was, but it's that self-doubt and that niggle that sneaks in, and you go and look at somebody else's and you're like, oh, I couldn't have done that. And I think we almost have to just kick ourselves and just someone put it to me the other day. I'd got some in my personal life, but I got some bad feedback, and someone put it to me. It was like, right, what would you do if you got a 1-star review, Vicky? What would you advise your clients to do if they got a 1-star review? I was like, well, I'd advise them to ignore that 1-star review. It's not the truth. It's not what they are. They've got loads of 5-star reviews. They've got loads of clients that love them, and that's what they should be focusing on. And he was like, right, exactly. So apply the 1-star effect to your life and move on from the feedback. And I think we all need to do that. We all need to think about those clients who said, I couldn't have done this without you. I needed that. Whatever you bring to the room, you've got to focus on that positive, and people aren't lying to you. I mean, some people probably are, but I think in the therapy room, you build up a rapport. No one needs to say anything. No one needs to pat you on the back and go, well done you. They're paying you good money to be sat with you. If they're going to continue paying you good money, there's a reason for it. And I think we need to focus on that, and by even if it's just collecting feedback and anonymizing it and posting that on your social media, starting with other people's words first, and then moving on to your voice and your message. But I think it comes down to really just being you and being unique. We can all think that we need to spend thousands of pounds on copywriters and we don't, because we're in a great world where we know who we are, or certainly trying to figure out who we are. And ultimately, those best posts are the ones that are just about you, which is humanity. So if that is the struggles that you've had in your day and what you've done to get over it, It's just about showing that you're human, and people buy from people. Well, who knew that if we just put our personality on there, for anyone what wants to switch off, go and switch off, go and unfollow, because actually, thanks very much, you've given me a better target audience that I'm talking to. And the ones that like or engage or even just read, then that's who we're talking to.
Yeah.
And I'd prefer to speak to 10 people who want to read what I have to say and might even smile along the way than 100 people who are neither here or there.
Yeah. Oh, that's very inspiring, actually, Vicky. I think, it makes me feel, oh, yeah, I'll go off and do another social media post. Oh, dear.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because we're taught to, there's so many, if you listen to marketing podcasts and, not to downplay marketing, but everything in business, well, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing your bookkeeping, you should be keeping on top of it. There's so many things that we should be doing. And actually, I think when we start forgetting what we should be doing and working in our natural flow state, that is where we get real to the sweet spot. But if we work in our flow state, we get rid of the bits that don't. I can't do my bookkeeping. I mean, I can't do my invoicing. It fills me with ick and I hate it. What can I do when I'm in the flow? I can write an amazing LinkedIn post, even if I use the support of AI or something like that. I can come up with an idea like, why is your website like a dating profile? And I can write it. So if we stay in flow state, we're going to naturally go to the places that we should be, and then our business will be more efficient, because actually if that invoicing takes you 2 hours and you can outsource it and it takes someone 15 minutes, why are we doing it?
Absolutely.
And I think it's looking at it holistically. And then if we judge ourselves on page likes or people liking it, then I think we need to think when we go onto social media, we'd like, what are we going to tell the teenagers? What are we telling the teenagers? It isn't about people liking posts. That doesn't give you the number of friends. And actually, if every time we put something on there, we think, right, what advice would I give to a teenager? You step back from the impressions and the likes and the reach and all of that other malarkey and just go, I did that today. And if someone gets recommended to me, they can see I've posted 10 times, and they're not really going to look at the number of likes and the reaches and the interactions. They're going to read my content and see whether it's interesting or not. And I think we just have to be more teenager on it and take our own advice.
Yeah.
Because then you take out the headache of it and the competition side. Just do it because it makes sense. Even if no one reads it. You've wrote it, you've gone out your comfort zone, you've been brave. Guess what? Every time you're braver, you're growing that 1% braver. And then, you get to write blogs and things, and Google knows you exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just never know, do you? Because especially I think in our line of work, for therapists, you don't actually need a lot of people necessarily reading it. You just need someone who's looking. And like you say, they might find you somewhere else, but then look for you on social media and they find your post and it speaks to them. That one person becomes a client. It's done its job, really, hasn't it? So, yeah.
And there's you probably know this better than I do, but there's probably a level of someone sitting there thinking they need counselling or therapy, and then before actually booking, that's probably a number of months.
It can be, so definitely.
Actually, putting that post and that content out there, it might not be about that one post or blog post that you've written. That might just be the one that went, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So actually, by drip feeding it, you are doing a disservice to all of the people who need you by not putting that content out there. Because actually, it really does help if people come in and they pay for your services. But if your content helps people without even necessarily them paying you, then you're kind of ticking off your dreams of doing it. And you're making a difference. And if that one person just thinks they might not choose you today, but if they do something differently or they try something different, you've still made an impact. And that's
absolutely
really important. They may not have impacted your bank balance, but you know what? That one person who's read that post may go on to follow it. They may go on to advise someone else, and they may just think of you and go, they might recommend you, even though they've never used you.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's really, I mean, I get, because I did the podcast and stuff, I get a lot of people saying, oh, your podcasts have really helped. And, I've set up my private practice and I couldn't have done it without you. And they never actually paid me a penny.
Yeah, they never paid you a penny, yeah.
But it doesn't matter because, I mean, for me, there is that, I know I'm making an impact, but also because there's enough people who do find me and do pay me. So, there's people who want to work more closely with me. And I just feel that it's just so rewarding to be able to do both, actually. I get to work with people, the people who pay me, I get to work with them much more closely and I get to know them, which is fantastic. But if I'm having an impact outside of that and I'm making, essentially what I see is happening is that if I help people get out there and they're reaching clients and they're changing clients' lives, I've had a part in that. And I just think, wow, that's a ripple effect, isn't it? And I think that's one way of looking at it is you're having this ripple effect, even if you're not getting paid for every single ripple that you make.
And that is it. And I think I've spoke to so many people through networking and stuff that have given me advice and given me think about this, like me 1-star review piece of feedback the other day, like just that phone call that I needed at that time. It was a phone call for something completely different. He's picked that up and he's given me that nugget to think about. And if we all just give each other these nuggets in this world, then we make this place a better place. Like if we all just kept our information and it's my information and you're only going to get it if you paid me, like, well, that's a really sad world. And there's some people that want to live in it, but actually you don't keep smiles, do you? Like you don't not tell jokes to people because you don't want them to smile. I think we've got to, if people aren't going to pay you, they're not going to pay you, regardless of whether you restrict your content. There's people that can build their own websites, and I am never going to get £2,500 out of them. There are people that are going to get family and friends to do their website, and I might not be ready for them yet, but it might be when they're they've had it for a couple of years, they might go down that route. I know my niche is at that point, that next stage. There's no point me ignoring everybody else. They're not my targets. But if I can meet someone in networking and go, right, think about this, and this, or even if someone rings me and said, oh, I think I want a website off you, Vicky, and I can say, actually, I'm not going to be the right fit, but let me review your quotes. When you get the quotes off the other people, please let me review them. Please let me make sure that you're going to spend your money in the right place. I get to give back. It doesn't take me as long to do that as it would to design the website on a loss or whatever, or not enough to cover my overheads. But I'm then steering people in the right direction. I'm here to steer people in the right direction. I'm sure different people work in different ways, but certainly in therapy, that's exactly what you're doing, isn't it? Steering people in the right direction. And I just think by being a decent human being, the world looks after you, and I'm a big believer of it. So why would you not help others that are never going to pay you in the first place?
You might as well just help them anyway.
Yeah, and when they do need you, maybe in a year, 2 years' time, they're going to think, oh, God, I read that post. But actually their life doesn't require you just yet.
Yeah, because I think that's the other thing to say as well, is that a lot of the time, people, it's not, it might not be now, but it could be in the future. It just might be not yet. And I think it's the same for clients, I mean, I spend ages, I look through directories and think, oh, shall I get a counsellor or not? And then sometimes, like you say, you just get to that point where you think, yeah, I'm going to go for it. You just sort of suddenly decide now is the time because something just tips you over that balance. So yeah,
and it applies to all walks of life, doesn't it? And I think, when do you start going to the gym? When things hit the fan enough to force you out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning to go and get a sweat on and to go and put yourself into pain to be fitter? What's going to make you drink more water? What's going to make you, I don't know, earn more money or work more hours? There has to be a tipping point. And that is the same for when are you going to choose to have a website? Because we don't live in an ideal world. If everyone just had money for all of these things, we'd all be buying it. But actually everything has to be at that point. And it's about not necessarily tipping someone over the edge, but just being there as a safe pair of hands when they're ready to make that call. Because I think certainly in the therapy world, you are making a phone call or dropping an email to say, hi, I'm really ready to be amazingly vulnerable now,
Yeah.
and I am so looking forward to this. No one ever said, like,
Yeah.
you almost have to get to a point where you're ready to give away some of your trade secrets and hear back what you need to hear, and to be in that place holistically, I guess, to go there. And I think what's great for your listeners is that if you've put that piece of content out on social media, let's say, and someone's skim read it or read the last 10, by the time they pick up the phone to you, they've built a little bit of a rapport with you because they know
Yeah.
your tone of voice and they know you, and something's made them say, I want you over those 200 other people that are in that counselling directory. And I think that's why it's important, because actually it's the drip feed that, just taking one piece of the jigsaw one day at a time and building that picture for someone to say, yeah, I'm going to come to your room and I'm going to sit there, I'm going to bring my tissues and I'm going to reveal some stuff that I've been sitting with. And it's a really trusting buy. And if we hold back all of our info and all of our content, how do we expect someone to just go, yeah, you're the person I want to strip off with? Like, not going to happen, is it? Or you're
Yeah.
not going to, and it's not going to be the right fit, because that
Yeah.
person might come to 2 sessions and actually, no, no.
Yeah. Yes, it's really interesting to hear you talk, actually, because I think a lot of therapists are again quite shy about being on social media. And obviously, a lot of us, we worry about self-disclosure. So, we're supposed to maintain, it's an old-fashioned thing now, but, this sort of idea of the therapist as a blank sheet, it's sort of like, yeah. This is why we need to do a video podcast, because your little eyebrows went up there. Blank slate. That's what we're supposed to be, a blank slate. What was your reaction to? Go on, tell us about what you think about that.
I just think if we're a blank slate, what have we got to offer?
Yeah.
Like, what have we got to offer people? Now, I'm not saying you bring, like, so let me tell you about my life. I'm not saying it's that. But I think I don't want to sit with someone who can't empathise with me, like truly empathise with me. I don't want to sit with someone who has lived a different life to me, or I can't align to. I can't think of anything worse than sitting with someone who just is at a disconnect. Like, over the last few years, I've been to see 3 different counsellors, 2 on for free. No, in fact, I had CBT as well. So let's say 4 different therapists. And 3 of them were free, 2 through a counselling service, 1 through the NHS, and then now I'm paying for someone. I have made far more progress with the person I've paid for, that I've selected, that I have chosen to put skin in the game every single week and pay for, than I ever made with the people who I just got assigned to.
Yeah.
Because I knew nothing about them. I don't know, I don't necessarily want to know whether they got a wife and kids or etc., but I don't know whether they're neurodiverse. I don't know whether they're neurotypical. I don't know whether they're, how they identify even. And if I really wanted that, I could just, I don't know, go sit next to a randomer on a park bench almost. And I'm not trying to justify the service that you offer. And I absolutely got some things out of it. But I have far more skin in the game this time round, where I said to one of my old clients who was a psychotherapist, this is my problem. I want you to recommend me people you think I could align with. Go. And I looked out all those 3-4 people. I looked at the social media. I looked at the website. I read the content and thought, right, I spoke to 1 or 2 of them and I know I picked the right person.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear that you went through a recommendation as well. I think that's a really interesting, because again, that's your networking side. But I think we often do want a recommendation, don't we? Because like you say, you've got to overcome that discomfort of really revealing who you are. And that's not an easy thing to do, I don't think.
No, and I think we're giving away a lot. I think when we sit in that chair opposite, we are giving away a significant amount of our time, our money. The way I work, I don't know whether, like I said to my therapist, I'm not too sure what other people do, but I almost think week to week, right, what am I taking in there today? What am I taking in there today? What am I going to pick apart? What am I going to do? And the other week I went in with nothing really, and I just waffled, and I felt I felt a disservice to the counsellor, I felt a disservice to me, and I felt a disservice to the money that I'd got out my bank account. And that connection, that trust means that maybe on week one, I'm not ready to deliver the topic. I can talk around anything. I can weave my way out of talking about anything.
I think most of us can.
So
we can go around in little circles. We
Yeah.
have these moments where we say people have a door handle moment. So they're just going out the door and they say, oh, and by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when they say it as they're leaving,
Yes, and if we really want the person opposite to take off those next few layers, it has to be about that connection. It has to be about that trust. And if you start on a blank slate, that's where we started, isn't it? I just think you've got to. How many sessions is that going to take to get to that level of trust?
Yeah.
And what cost? Like, are we really looking to keep people in these rooms for a couple of years because we want to start on a blank slate and not align with them any way, shape, or form? That seems really cruel.
It's a really interesting perspective. It's lovely to hear. I'm just sure there's going to be a few people listening to this who are going to find this quite an interesting thing to go away and reflect on.
It's just one take, right? And this is what we always have to remember. One person's thoughts doesn't make it fact. It doesn't make it reality. It doesn't make it the general consensus. But I think that's why it's worth listening to your clients and your customers and going and actually reflecting 6 months after what made you choose me. What was it what was your buying process, and really understanding it. And it's something I probably don't do often enough. But by doing that, I know my bridal hairdresser, she left me some great feedback. And for her, it was like, I picked the phone up to you and you put me at ease straight away. You knew exactly what I was saying. And I had complete trust that you would understand exactly what I wanted to produce. And I was like, nice one. We listen to what we need to listen to, don't we? And this podcast might not be at the right time for some people, and they might just go, nah, no, because there's a level of uncomfortableness, and it might be actually right. And 3 months later, right, I need to go back to that episode or whatever.
Yeah,
we can't take one person's opinion as fact, or different website designers will come at it differently. But this is me sitting in a web designer seat, sitting in the therapy seat, going through the uncomfortable stages that I have as someone who's neurodiverse as well, and going, have it full frontal. Like, this is my journey. And if 10% of that is global across all clients, then if you improve your business by 5%, you've changed, haven't you? Your next month is going to be slightly easier.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear you say you're neurodiverse as well, because I think for a lot of neurodivergent counsellors, they do find that they do attract clients when they are open and they do talk about their own neurodivergence, for example. And while we're sort of just on that subject, because you do work with ADHD people, don't you? So I just wondered if you'd like to tell us a little bit about that, because how does that show up for people when they're trying to create a website, to be ADHD?
It's so much easier to stay in flow and to procrastinate. And what I found doing websites for neurotypical people as well was, in a typical web design world, you would have your onboarding meeting, you'd say, right, okay, I'll do this. And then you'd maybe do a couple of pages, and then it would go on email, and that person would then need to review it and then comment on it and feedback. And then it would come back to you, and it would be like this ping pong match. However, the ball might not get played for 2-3 months because there's an email waiting in that inbox, and you've got to then be in the right frame of mind to think, right, I need to do this and I need to do this, and I've got to sit down and I've got to focus and I've got to stay on task. I changed that up and just went, come and stand by me. Come and stand by me. Let me watch your body language. Let me give you that to-do list, and let me force you to stand there or to sit there and provide me with the case studies, the headshots, the testimonials, the content. Let me force you in reading this one page, because at the end of the week, that website's going to go live. So I might put you through a world of pain, as it were, to be dedicated to it. But at the end of the week, you can go for a lie down and you've done.
Yeah.
Whereas I think we are so great at diverting and being busy with other things that we don't want to do, especially if we've got to sell ourselves, and you sit there. And actually the working together is what enables me to say, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. It allows me to watch when their face lights up. It allows me to see when their shoulders are dropping. If I stick behind emails, I can't do that. I can't see it. So for me, having the deadline, which means you're going to schedule it in your calendar and we are going to get it done, and by that Friday, whatever you haven't done is not going to go live. And it puts that emphasis on getting it done. And like, just come, just like, it's almost like accepting where you are. I'm not going to judge you on your what could be seen as unorganizedness. I'm not dealing with website experts or copywriting experts. And I think there's a level of going, well, I should be able to do this and I should be able to do that and I should be able to do the other. I'm like, should you? Heck, you're a really, really good bridal hairdresser. No one's judging me on my skills with a pair of scissors and a hairbrush and a pair of straighteners. Like, and if they were, and if I was really going to go into a hairdresser's and be judged on that, like, that's not comfortableness. Yeah. So for me, it's about, just like you guys do, it's about making that space welcoming and to go, come with your issues, like, bring them. Because the more I know about clients, the better I can almost reflect their website, because that website is them, but in a digital space. And I think that's where really 10 years ago I had this vision of this journey. And I come back to the bridal hairdresser, Cleo, that's where it really just came to life. This is where I need to sit. This is where I make a significant difference. And if she thinks about doing that website now, she smiles and she'll voice note me, and I've left an impact on her. And that's through building a website. Like, there's not many people who go, was it a fun experience? Yeah. It's never a fun experience. And why shouldn't it be? Because you're spending a lot of money on it. And makes me happy.
I know, because I've sort of, people I work with when they're working with, say, with a website designer, and there is definitely, some of the people that I've worked with, they've had a page and they've been meaning to do it for so long, and it's so hard, isn't it, to do it, because it does bring up all those fears about who you are and do you really deserve to say this, and you keep putting it off and the website just doesn't get done. So sounds like a fantastic way to work. Just get it done.
Get it done. And I think what's amazing about it is websites can be this unknown beast, can't they? Like, I'm going to break it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the other, and it's going to fail. By doing it side by side, I'm saying, this is how we do it. I'm doing this, I'm changing this. And it's like, oh, okay, she hasn't broke that website all week and she's done that, and that is a little bit simpler. And then you either go away and you choose to update it or you choose not to. And but either way, it's a better version of you shining out to the world to say, I'm here. Let's work together. Yeah.
Oh, Vicky, what a fantastic conversation. I love it. I really love it. I'm sure you will have helped lots of people, because it's a lot about, being you and allowing yourself to work in the way that feels right for you, and not worrying too much as well about those boxes that you think you should be ticking as a business owner, but just taking it step by step.
And I think just listening to you say those words there, it's about putting yourself in the seat that you don't sit in your counselling sessions, in your therapy sessions. Because in what world do you say, don't bother turning up as yourself? Yeah, continue being that fake version of yourself. Continue, just not aligning and being truthful. And it's just not there. It's not the advice you've given. So I think whether you do it in your head, or whether you literally sit in the other chair and just say to yourself, who am I? Who am I? Am I really going to keep the world from seeing me? Because you're just, like I say, you're just doing a disservice to the people that need you. And people do need you. People need all of us. And by hiding and being scared, we're letting people down. We're letting people down. And I think when you start to see it like that, it becomes easier, because actually, again, if you're sat in the other side of the chair, what does it matter what them people on the school playground do? Are you inviting them around for Christmas tea? No. Then so why are you stopping from doing it because you're worried about that person 3 connections away from you and what they might think or they might see? And we have to get better and braver at giving ourselves the words that we give to others, I think, in a way that isn't telling ourselves off, but is a way that's empathetic and going, I know this is scary, this is big, you're going to get better, you're going to get braver, you're going to get stronger, but you don't get a 6-pack by not going to the gym. You have to go, and you have to keep going, and you have to keep going, and you get there.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. I think that's a perfect place to end. So thank you so much, Vicky, for coming along. And people can find you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the profile of choice. My Insta is very much dead. My Facebook is very much dead. But LinkedIn is where I take to if I feel creative. So yes, LinkedIn is definitely the place to connect.
Yeah, so I'll pop all your details in the show notes so people can find you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for coming along.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. This is my first podcast and it's been delightful.
It's been brilliant.
It's been really great.
You're a natural. It's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening. Do come and join my Facebook community, Good Enough Counsellors. And for more information about how I can help you develop your private practice, please visit my website, josephinehughes.com. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love it if you could share it with a fellow therapist or leave a review on your podcast app. And in closing, I'd love to remind you that every single step you make gets you closer to your dream. I really believe you can do it.